Daf is Daf Hey and in Yoma, and we are on Daf Dalet Amid Beis at the bottom. Rabbi Yochanan had learned that the basis for our Mishnah, where the Mishnah says that the Kohen is separated for 7 days in the Beis HaMikdash prior to the Avodah Yom Kippur, and we learned that from the Miluim, from the inauguration where Aaron and his children were separated. And Rish Lakish challenged him and said, wait, but over there by the Miluim, every halacha is ma'akiv. If it's not done, it's going to invalidate the karban or invalidate the service. And over here, the separation is not ma'akiv, is not necessary enough that it would invalidate the service if it wasn't done. And how do we know this? Because the replacement kohen, who will have to step in if something happens to the Kohen Gadol that would invalidate him. So this Kohen, it doesn't say the Mishnah needs to be separated. So from that question and answer, and Rabbi Yochanan not rejecting the answer, we see that Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish both are of the opinion that every part of the Miluim service, every part of the inaugural service of the Beis HaMikdash, the avodah is me'akiv. It would invalidate the service if it wasn't done. And so the Gemara is going to address this and see what parts would be this service that could be invalidated, or somebody would disagree and say would not invalidate it. 6 lines from the bottom, and Dalet Amid Beis, Michlal de Tarvayu Svirulu. From here, we can deduce that both Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan are of the opinion, Miluim kolakos of behem ma'akimet, that in regards to the Miluim, in the service of the inaugural service of the Mishkan, that whatever it says there must have been done, and otherwise it would be invalidated. The Itmar, and this is really a machlokas that we spoke about. Miluim, in regards to the Miluim service, the avodah of the Beis HaMikdash at the inauguration, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina. There's a machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina. Chad Omar, one said, whatever it says in the pasuk needs to be done is going to be ma'akiv, will invalidate if it's not done. Then anything that in the future also will invalidate, invalidates now. She'ein ma'akiv l'doros, and something that in the future would not invalidate now either. So he says whatever is ma'akiv in the future, in generations, is ma'akiv, would invalidate, and otherwise it would not. So the Gemara says to stayim, and we can prove, we can show from the conversation of Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish that indeed Rabbi Yochanan is the one who says that it is ma'akiv, that it would invalidate if it wasn't done. Rabbi Yochanan since Rish Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan, wait, well, shouldn't we learn from the Miluim also this point that whatever it said is said over there is necessary and would invalidate if it's not done? And Rabbi Yochanan didn't respond to anything. That is indeed good proof that Rish Lakish, from Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan's conversation, that Rabbi Yochanan is the one that says that kol hakosab and ma'akev, whatever is written there is ma'akev. So my beinayu. So what distinction is there between these two opinions? So we have opinion number one, Rabbi Yochanan. He says whatever it says by the mitzvah of Miluim must be done, and if it's not done, it's going to invalidate the inaugural service, the Miluim service. And Rish Lakish, and Rabbi Chanina says that no, only those parts of the service, those parts of the avodah that in the future would invalidate a service that it doesn't have it done. That if a later avodah, meaning in the generations to come, this avodah, this service is missing it, it would invalidate it. So at the Miluim as well, it would invalidate it. But anything that in the future does not invalidate also doesn't invalidate by the Miluim. So what service would this be? The Gemara is going to go through a whole series of different opinions as to which aspect of the service could be missing according to Reb Chanina and not invalidate. because in the future it wouldn't invalidate it. Amar Rav Yosef, so with the top of Hey Man Aleph now, Amar Rav Yosef Smicha. So Rav Yosef says it's leaning. A part of the avodah was that the owner of the avodah or the person representing the tzibur would then lean on the carbon and do a vidui or a statement or a leaning. So this smicha that was necessary for the carbon, since in the future it's not ma'akev, it would not invalidate if it's missing. So too at the miluyim, it would not invalidate if it was missing. That's the distinction between the one who says whatever is written invalidates. Well, it's written, so therefore it would invalidate if it's not there. Smicha ma'akva, so smicha would invalidate if it's not, if they forgot to do it. But according to Rabbi Chanina, who says that if it's missing in the future, it wouldn't invalidate. So now too, it doesn't invalidate. Smicha would not invalidate if it's missing. And how do we know that in the future generations, indeed, if somebody's missing, smicha would not invalidate? That it doesn't invalidate. Tana we learned v'samach v'nirtza. The Torah says that he has to lean his hands on the head of the oila v'nirtza, and that will cause it to be accepted. Now the Gemara says, wait, can it be that it would make it accepted? V'chi smicha mechaperes. Is it the leaning on the animal that it atones? But we already know from the Torah, and it says many times, that that it's the sprinkling of the blood, the spritzing of blood on the mizbeach, the zrika, that that affects atonement. Shenema, for it says ki adamu v'nefesh yichaper, because it says the soul of the animal is in the blood, and the blood is what causes the atonement. Ki adamu v'nefesh yichaper. That's what causes that's what affects atonement. So then the Brisa continues and says, so what is the meaning of the pasuk when it says that it will lean and affect acceptance? That it's to tell you that if he leans, but he doesn't really care about it, meaning he makes it like shiori mitzvah. The excesses of the mitzvah, the unimportant parts of the mitzvah. The Torah will consider it as if he has not properly received atonement. However, but he does get atonement because he spritzed the blood. It's just not done in the proper way. So the Brisa clearly tells us that in future generations, it will not invalidate the carbon if you don't have smicha. However, smicha is a necessary part. So we see that in the future generations, meaning Ladoris, in all generations, smicha is not ma'akev, does not invalidate if missing. So too, according to Rabbi Chanina, in the miluyim, it would not be ma'akev. Whereas according to Rabbi Yochanan, it is ma'akev. If Aaron and his children didn't do it during the miluyim, during the inaugural service, it would invalidate because kala kasab ma'akev, whatever is written there must be done and would invalidate if it's not there. So that's Rabbi Yosef's explanation. That smicha is the distinction. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Amar tenufa. He says that it is the tenufa, the lifting of the carbon and waving it. That's the distinction. According to Rabbi Yochanan, that every part of the service that's written in the miluyim, that's there, the avodah must be done, and if not, it's going to invalidate ma'akva. So then the waving, the tenufa as well. However, according to Rabbi Chanina, who said that if any part of the avodah in the future would not invalidate if missing, so too over here, if it's missing, it's not going to invalidate. So the waving, lifting and waving is not going to be ma'akiv. Now, how do we know that in the future, in the old generations, it's not going to be ma'akiv? The Tani we learned. It says that you should take the carbon as it, and then he will take the tenufa, he will lift it up and wave it lechaper for an atonement. Now, so Gemara asked the same question we asked before. Really, the waving is what affects atonement? We've already seen many times that the atonement is affected. The kapara comes from the dam, from the spritzing of the blood on the mizbeach. Shenemar, for it says ki adamu v'nefesh echaper. Same pasuk that we brought before, that the blood is what affects atonement. So why does it say for a waving to atone it? To tell you that even that if this person made the waving a shiari mitzvah, the excesses of a mitzvah, unimportant, was uninterested in the uninspired, if you would, in this aspect of the mitzvah. So the Torah considers it as if they did not get atonement, but they were atoned, the kippur. However, it's just not fully or not appropriately done. So the Rabbi Yosef says it's smicha is the distinction, and Rav Nachman Yitzchak says it's tenufa, it's the waving of the korban. Rav Papa says prishas shiva. It's the separation of 7 days before that. Our subject at hand. That's really the distinction between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish and Rabbi Chanina. Iker Benaya, that's the distinction. Lamanda Amar, according to Rabbi Yochanan, who had told us that whatever is written by Miluim must be done, and if not, it's ma'akiv, it's going to invalidate. Kol hakosa behem ma'akiv behem. So ma'akva. So this too is going to be ma'akiv. It says that they had to be separated into the Mishkan, and if they didn't do it, it would be invalid. However, according to the opinion that says that something that in the future does not invalidate, so too then it didn't invalidate, then it would not invalidate. And how do we know indeed that for the generations, meaning by Yom Kippur, every Yom Kippur, when it says in our Mishnah, the kohen have to be separated, how do you know that it is not invalidate? Midekatani maskinin v'lekatani mafrishin. Because it says in our Mishnah that the replacement kohen, we prepare him, meaning we set him aside and we check his clothes to make sure that the avodas clothing of the kohen would fit him. We don't say that he also has to be separated from his home and do the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. In order to do the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, we see that we prepare a replacement kohen, but he doesn't have to be separated. Well, how's he going to do the avodah if he wasn't separated? If something happens to the kohen gadol and he's invalidated and can't do the avodah anymore, well, this replacement kohen is going to step up and do the avodah, but he wasn't separated. So you see that it's not ma'akev. It's not going to invalidate if it wasn't there, and so therefore the kohen himself we separate. The kohen gadol we separate, but the replacement kohen we don't separate it. Now, how did the Mishnah know that? The Gemara doesn't tell us. In the previous ones, the Gemara indicates from a pasuk, but over here the Gemara does not tell us how the Mishnah knew that indeed this mitzvah is not ma'akiv. Ravina Amar Ribui Shiva Meshicha Shiva Ekebenai. So the Ravina says it's actually the consecration of the kohen in his service is what is not ma'akev according to Rabbi Chanina. Lamanda Amar Kol HaKosav ma'akev. According to the one who says that whatever is written in the avodah must be done. So ma'akva, it's going to be ma'akev if it wasn't done. 7 days of the kohen wearing is 8 garments, or the eight special garments that the kohen gadol wears, and 7 days of anointment with the oils. And if it's not done in this way, where he wore the clothing for 7 days and he had the oils for 7 days as a anointment, if he didn't do both of those, then it would be invalidated and he would not be able to do the service as a kohen. But according to the opinion that says that if it's not necessary and will not invalidate if it wasn't there in the future generations. So also in the Miluim, it was not ma'akiv. Loy ma'akiv, so it would not be ma'akiv. And how do we know that indeed in the future generations it was not necessary? So minolan the loy ma'akiv, the Tani we learned. So here we have a few psukim in regards to the Kohen's garments. The pasuk says, "The chipar hakohen," the Tani we learned, "The chipar hakohen ashiyim shach oisei v'ashiyimale es yodei l'kayin tachazov." The Kohen will atone. Which Kohen? The one who was anointed and the one whose hands were filled, meaning that he had been clothed with the special garments, that as a Kohen, tachazovim, to be the Kohen in place of his father. So we see that the avodah of the Kohen on Yom Kippur was the atonement, was the Kohen who both had the special clothing and the Mashicha, the Shemen HaMishcha on Rosh, the anointment oils, as well as the special garments. Now, it doesn't, in this pasuk, it doesn't say how long it has to be. It just says that he will have both of these ceremonies, if you would, these actions done to him to inaugurate him, to consecrate him as a Kohen, as the Kohen. So, why does it say it this way? Because it says in Shemos at the beginning of the inauguration of the Kohen, it says Shivas Yomim Yilbashem HaKohen Tachtav Mibanav. 7 days the Kohen who is in his place of his sons will wear them for 7 days, and that is the consecration of the Kohen Gadol. So Ein Helenis Rabbe Shiva. So over there it says that he will wear it for 7 days, and right, and it says the Kohen Gadol is going to wear them for 7 days. V'nimshach shiva, and then we can also understand that he would also have to have 7 days of inauguration of the oils. That for 7 days he would have the not the inauguration, the anointment of the oils on his forehead as well as a part of the Avodah, because it says 7 days is his inauguration, is his consecration. So how do we know? So only if it nisra shiva v'nimshach shiva, that he had both both of these avodas of the consecration, the wearing the garments and the anointment. What happens if nisra shiva v'nimshach yemechad? If he only had the garments for 7 days, but the anointment only happened for 1 day, or vice versa? Nisrabe Yemechad, he only wore the Kohen Gadol's clothing for 1 day, but he was anointed for 7 days. Menayin, how do we know that that's still going to be valid? In other words, that even though that the requirement is for the Ribui Begadim, the extra clothing, meaning the special clothing of the Kohen Gadol, and the anointment of the Shemen Mishcha, the anointment oil, both of them should be for 7 days. How do we know if they weren't both for 7 days? One was for 7 days and the other was not. So that's why by the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol for Yom Kippur, it says, as long as he was anointed and he wore the special clothing. It doesn't have to be that it was 7 for both. In any way that it was done is going to be enough. In any case, so what we see is that even though there is a mitzvah of 7 days of both, it's not ma'akev, it's not going to be invalidated. Ashkechan ribu shiva l'chatchila, Mashiach shiva l'chatchila mina. So now the Gemara asks, and how do we know that we said, the Torah says that he has to wear the clothing for 7 days, but how do we know that the anointment also has to be for 7 days, as we indicated before? That this is we compare it from we compare it to the inauguration of the consecration through clothing. So if you want, from the very fact that we needed a pasuk to indicate that it doesn't have to be done for 7 days, because the Torah just said Asher Kippur that it says the one that was anointed and wore the clothing, and it didn't say 7 days to tell you that it's not ma'akiv, it's not going to invalidate if you didn't do it. From that, we can see that normally, typically, you should do it for 7 days. And if you want, we could say it's indicated in the pasuk. The Torah says the clothing, the special clothing, the holy garments of Aaron that were for him will be for his children as well, to anoint them and to fill them, meaning to consecrate them by wearing the garments so that they can be sanctified in the avodah. So we see that the Torah puts the two together: the anointment and the wearing of the clothing. And the wearing of the clothing, clearly it says that it has to be for 7 days. So too the anointment has to be for 7 days. Iskash mashicha l'ribui. So the anointment is compared to the wearing of the special clothing. Ma ribui, just as the wearing of the extra special clothing, the special clothing that the Kohen Gadol wears, the 8 garments, Shiva, has to be done for 7 days. Af Mashiach Shiva. So too, the Mashiach has to be done, the anointment has to be done for 7 days. So this is the fourth opinion, Ravina's opinion, that the distinction between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina of what is ma'akev, what would invalidate in the service of the miluim, of the inauguration of the Mishkan, is the garments that the Kohen Gadol is going to wear and as inauguration, as a consecration. According to Rabbi Yochanan, everything that is written there by the miluim would have to be done, and so the Kohen Gadol would have to have worn the special garments for 7 days and the Mashiach, the oils, being anointed for 7 days. And according to Rabbi Chanina, since in the future, if it's missing, meaning that it was not done, if both weren't done for 7 days, it would not be enough to invalidate the inaugural, the consecration of the Kohen. So too, at the inauguration of the Mishkan, at the Miluim, would not have been invalidated. Okay, so the Gemara now challenges, according to Rabbi Yochanan, that it does invalidate if the Kohen didn't have this. Well, we just saw that by the Avodah of Yom Kippur, it indicates that if the Kohen only, as long as it was done, Mashiach, anointment, and he wore the special clothing, and it wasn't done for 7 days, that's going to be sufficient. So why over here would he say that by the inauguration it would invalidate it? My time in the Ma'akif. So what's the reason that we say that in all of these things, that whatever it says by the Miluim, it's going to be missing. If it's missing, it's going to invalidate. So it's Ma'akiv, it must be done, and if not, it invalidates the service. So it says in the pasuk, it says, you shall do for Aaron and his children, meaning the inauguration of the Mishkan, this is the avodah that they shall be done. Kacha, so must it be done. Kacha ikuva. This extra word of kacha, like this, it tells you ikuva, it's ma'akev, that if it's not done like this, it's going to invalidate. So Gemara says, Teinach, kol milsa, the ksiva b'hayin yaneh. Fine. So that would be good for everything that's in the inaugural service, that's written by the inaugural service. It says, you shall do for Aaron and his children kacha, like this, and nothing else. However, the leiksiva b'hayin yaneh minala. What about the things that are not written at the miluim itself, where it says aser tasha, and that would be the Rashi says that it doesn't say the urim v'tumim. They in the breastplate, putting in the urim v'tumim, whatever is not written. Essentially, what the question is, why would that not? Why would that still invalidate? Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak Yalef Pesach Pesach. So Rav Nachman Yitzchak says we learn it from a comparison Pesach Pesach. It says by the inauguration, right? By the commandment that says al Pesach oil moed, and by the also by the doing of it, it says takr Pesach oil moed. So since it says by both, you shall do it at the Pesach oil moed, and Aaron and his children will eat the korban at Pesach oil moed, and it says everybody gathered at the Pesach oil moed, the opening of the meeting, the tent, so the Mishkan. So just as over here, where it said Pesach Moed, the gathering, it's invalidated if it's not done as prescribed. So too, the parts that are there at the commandment also going to be invalidated if it's not done as prescribed. He says that it says in the pasuk that you will speak to Aaron and his children after the death of Nadav and Avihu and tell them that they will do this service as is required, and they will eat and they will guard the guarding of Hashem at the door. They will live by the door of the Mishkan day and night, and they will guard the guarding of Hashem. So ikuva, that tells you that extra guarding is to tell you that it has to be done exactly as prescribed. Ravashi says it's at the end of that pasuk. It says, and they will guard the guarding of Hashem, kichein suvesi, for so as I commanded. Now that's superfluous. Obviously, Moshe is telling him what he was commanded. Say the additional, you will do all this for so was I commanded. Kichein suvesi is telling them ikuva. It must be done exactly as prescribed, and any change, anything else is going to invalidate it. So this is the basis for Rabbi Yochanan's opinion that everything that's written there by the Miluim is necessary and would invalidate if not done. Now there are a few. Now that we mentioned this pasuk, which by the inauguration, it's by the in Miluim, Moshe completed this statement of saying, you will live at the Mishkan, and you will guard the guarding, and do it because Kain Tsuvesi, because so was I commanded. Is the pasuk finds another place where Moshe says this, for so as I commanded, and three times that Moshe really says, do this because this is what I was commanded. Now, this is at the Miluim, and there were essentially 3 goat karbanas that were brought at the inauguration that were chatas offerings. We have the communal karban as an atonement offering at the Miluim. That's a part of the special inaugural service, the Avodas HaMiluim. Then you have the karban of the tribe of the day, because we know that for 12 days prior, every day there was an inaugural, one of the Nesiim, one of the princes, the leaders of of each shevet, of each tribe, brought a carbons. So there was the chatas goat of Nachshon, who was the tribe of Yehuda, and then there was also Rosh Chodesh. So there was the sa'ir. There was the goat, the chatas offering, which is the Rosh Chodesh korban. Now, the first 2 that we mentioned are a specific korban for the inauguration. It never happened again. The communal korban, which was a goat, the korban of the tribe of that day, Yehuda. So the korban of Nachshon ben Aminadav, who was the Nasi of Yehuda, and those 2 were special. However, the third one, which was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, that's the Rosh Chodesh Karban. That's a Karban that happens every Rosh Chodesh. Now that day, as exciting and as special it was because of the inauguration, it was also very tragic because 2 of the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, died doing their own initiative in the Beis Hamikdash, right? They brought their own fire, which was not commanded, and they died. So Moshe tells Aaron, continue in this service, even though as a general rule we know that in Onein, someone whose immediate relative passed and had not been buried yet, so that day they passed, they have a din of an Onein and are not allowed to partake in the service and not allowed to eat the karbanos. Nevertheless, the special inaugural service, Moshe said, there's a commandment from Hashem that you eat it and partake in it. Nevertheless, this is a part of what you do. However, the third korban, the korban Rosh Chodesh, was not so. And indeed, Moshe challenged Aaron, said he sought out where that korban was and saw that it had been burned and not eaten. And he said, why didn't you eat it? Didn't I tell you that an onein, even though usually they can't partake, in this case, Hashem said you should. And Aaron said, well, that's only true for these special milun kavanas. But for what is just a regular Rosh Chodesh korban, that would not apply. And Moshe said, you're right. So that was the occurrence that happened, and the discussion around the missing karbanos. But 3 times there, Moshe says, speaks about the command. So Tana Rabban, Ki kein tzuvesi, ka'asher tzivesi, ka'asher tziv Hashem. 3 times he says, for so as I commanded, as I have commanded, as Hashem has commanded. So what does that mean? Ki kein tzuvesi, for so have I commanded, ba'ani yochlu, that even though you are an onein, even though that you have an immediate family that passed, and so therefore, typically, you would not be allowed to eat and partake of the korban. Here, you shall eat it anyhow, because this is the commandment of Hashem that even though that they were onein, they should eat of the special korban because this is a special day. Kasha tzivisi b'shas ma'aseh maleh, as I've commanded. At the time he said to them, meaning at the time that he saw that they had burnt the Rosh Chodesh special offering, the Rosh Chodesh offering, which was not one of the Miluim special offerings. It was just a standard Rosh Chodesh offering. He said to them, there's no invalidation of this korban. Why did you burn it? Why didn't you eat it? You should have eaten it as I had commanded you when I told you in the name of Hashem that you should eat it, even though that you're an onein. Kasha tziv Hashem and v'lemi alai ani yomer. And I'm not saying this on my own. It's rather this is what Hashem said, and indeed they accepted that, and they ate the 2 karbanos, the communal korban and the special korban of Nachshon, even though they were onein. However, Moshe was mistaken in regards to the korban of Rosh Chodesh, and that's what Aaron said to them. Wait, but since this is not a special miluim korban, it's a korban that comes every Rosh Chodesh, and therefore that should that's really a Rosh Chodesh korban. It was given to us to atone for the community every month, and therefore it's not supposed to be eaten. And Moshe said, "You're right." Amar Rabbi Tzvi Fischer, mechnesayin in kesuvim b'parsha. Now, in the commandment, right? Earlier we spoke about the commandment and the action of the what was not written in one is learned by the other in regards to the Urim v'Tumim, the placement of the illuminating words, the name of Hashem, whatever it is, into the choshen, into the breastplate of the kohen. Well, actually, the Gemara goes back to that and says the putting on the pants part of the garments of the Kohanim is not mentioned on either side, not by making it, and not by not by the commandment to make it. It's not written at all. So Keshu Omer v'zeh hadavar shetas alehem lekadesh osem l'chaim. So therefore, when the Torah says, and this is the manner, this is what you shall do to them, to make them holy so that they can do the service, that is in addition to what it said earlier. And when enumerated the list of clothing, it mentioned pants, but it didn't enumerate it when it says, and here's what you shall make, or when they actually made it and put it on them. So but the vizeh hadavar, and this is what you shall do, tells you what we said earlier, meaning also the trousers also has to be put on. Vasira seifa, and also the Kohen had to bring an asira seifa, a tenth of an ephah, the measure, which the Kohen Gadol brings every morning, every day for a morning and afternoon offering. At the inauguration, every one of them, even the minor Kohanim, the regular Kohanim, would also have to bring it. Now, Bishlam Mechlasayim Ksivi bin Yonah the Begad. So it says, okay, so the pants, that's mentioned already in the list of the clothing, and therefore, when it later says, even though it doesn't say that they made them and they put it on them, but it says you shall do as you shall do this, and you shall do this to sanctify them, to be a Kohen. Fine, so it makes sense that it's including what was mentioned beforehand. But but where does it say that each one of them would bring this meal offering of asira se'efa, a tenth of an ephah? Asya zezeh. So that's from a comparison of zeh. It says over here, v'zeh karban aron avodav, and this is the carbon. This is the offerings of Aaron and his children, Asher Yakrivu Lashem, asira se'efa, and that will bring to Hashem a tenth of an ephah. And since it says zehadavar, this is the manner that you shall do. And over there it says, and this is the manner that Aaron and Aaron and his children brought as a carbon. So we compare the two, and just as over there, the vazeh means that it's explicit that they brought a asira se'efa. So too here it means that they brought the asira se'efa, the tenth of an ephah. So every Kohen at the inauguration of that Kohen will have to wear the garments and bring a tenth of an ephah. And this is something we saw earlier, that in Shkalim, if a Kohen on his inauguration brings it, and if a Kohen Gadol, his first day of service is also the day that he's a Kohen Gadol. Remember that. So this idea is that a Kohen Gadol every day brings a tenth of an ephah as his meal offering, and a Kohen, every Kohen, even a minor Kohen, at his inauguration or consecration into the service, has to wear the garments, and he has to bring an asira se'efa, a meal offering, a tenth of an ephah. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Shimon bar Yochai. Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, Menayin shaf mikra parsha ma'akiv. How do we know that by the inauguration, which it says the gathering of the community was around the tent, and there was the 7 days of gathering. It says Vatikar Le'eda, the community was gathered, and Moshe said to them, Zeh hadavar shatziv Hashem lasis. This is the manner that Hashem said to them, that you also have to read the parsha. It has to be spoken out to them as well. So mikra parsha ma'akiv. And if it was not done, it would invalidate. And it says, Moshe said to the community, Zeh hadavar ashatziva Hashem. This is the davar, typically translated as this is the manner. But davar, we know, also means word. This is the word that Hashem commanded, that he have to speak it as well. Dibur, afila dibur ma'akev, even the speech, even saying the words of the parsha were necessary, and if not, it would invalidate. Ketzad el-bisha. And so, what was the order within which they clothed Aharon and his children. The Gemara says, Ketzad Elbisha. Why are you asking how they were clothed? Have it. Whatever happened, happened. Ella Ketzad Malbisha Lasilov. Well, how are Aaron and his children going to be clothed when they come back after Techiyas HaMesim? Aaron and Moshe and his children and the children will come back, and Aaron will once again be the Kohen Gadol. That's wonderful times to look forward to. But how are they going to clothe Aaron and his children then in the re-inauguration? So la'asid loving nami l'chasheva Aaron Moshe imayim. Why do we have to worry about that when Aaron and his children come back to be Kohen Gadol and Kahanim? Well, at that time we'll have Moshe as our leader. So Moshe will tell us what to do, or we'll watch. And Moshe imayim. So why do you have to worry now and try and figure out how the clothing them happened? Ella ketzad elbishan lemizber kroi. Rather, how do you dress them? Is just trying to figure out the meaning of the verses of the psukim, because there's a contradiction, as it were, of the psukim itself. Because when Moshe commands them, it says v'chagarta osam avneit Aaron Nevada, and you will place upon them a belt, Aaron and the children. So it seems that this was done at the same time. It was done at the same order. And however, when it actually says that Aaron was clothed, it says Vayachgar oso avnei, and they put upon him, meaning singular, only on Aaron, his belt, and then it completes all the clothing for Aaron. And then it says, and they brought the children over to clothe them, meaning that they were not, their belt was not placed together, whereas in the commandment, it says that they were placed together. So the children of Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yochanan disagree. One says that first Aaron was clothed completely, and then the children were clothed completely. That it was indeed done simultaneously. And then the reason why the pasuk puts it separately is just because once we're talking about Aaron, it told you the entire story for Aaron and then for the children. Abaye. So Abaye now clarifies, and he says that actually that there were certain parts that it was that were the garment of the Kohen Gadol and the garment of the Kohen Hedyot, the regular Kohen, were actually the same. They wear the same trousers, the pants, and the hat, the turban. Those are the same. So that in the trousers and the hat, everybody agrees that it was first on Aaron and then the children. The Aaron cut it, because both where Moshe tells them how to do it and when it reports how it was done, Aaron is first and then the children. However, in regards to the belt, there is a machlokas. And Be'ez Hashem tomorrow afternoon, Shabbos before Mincha, we will see that there is a machlokas as to the belt, whether the belt of the Kohen Gadol and the belt of the Kohen Hedyot were the same or different, and that's really the basis of this machlokas. Shabbos afternoon, 1 hour before Mincha, Be'ez Hashem.